folks, you know this is a grammar channel. It's all about correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax. Now, the whole time I've been doing this, since 2017, I always see folks on the internet saying things like, oh, grammar comes from the word Grimoire, which is like a spell book, and it has to do with witchcraft or maybe Satanism. Why do you think they call spelling? When you swear an oath, why are you swearing? It's a curse. Cursive. Black magic. These types of things. But does that really line up with the continuance of the evidence of the history of grammar? Granted, it's in the fiction, of course, but does it line up with the known etymological history? Let's find out. All credit to Varg Vikernes for that. So when I look up the word grammar in a Google search from the Oxford Languages Dictionary, it says the whole system and structure of a language or of languages in general, usually taken as consisting of syntax and morphology, including inflections, and sometimes also phonology and semantics. So this gives you a pretty good idea of what it is, and it also says from late Middle English, Grimoire, Latin, Greek, grammatica, of letters, art, letter of the alphabet, thing, written. Okay? Now let's go and look at Grimoire. Grimoire. According to this, it's Grimoire. So it's a book of spells and magic. Magic spells and invocations from French. Figures. That's a joke. Inside joke. Mid-19th century French alteration of Grimoire. So right here, you're getting a red flag. Well, I'm getting a red flag. 19th century, it's saying. So it's a later interpretation of grammar, meaning they assigned this spells and invocations concepts. They assigned those concepts in the 19th century, well after the word grammar had already been in use, had already been established what it is. Now they're modifying it to mean something else, which means a book of magic spells and invocations. So what is a spell actually? Let's see what Google says spell is. Spell is a write, or name the letters that form. Oh, means to write or name the letters that form, I guess. A word in correct sequence. Be a sign or characteristic of. That's interesting. Spell out. A form of words used as magical charm or incantation. But let's get to the meat of the matter. Let's look it up in the etymology dictionary. So here we have grammar, noun, of course, tangible contract. Late 14th century Latin grammar, rules of Latin, from Old French grammaire, grammar, learning, especially Latin and philology, also magic, incantation, well, in parentheses magic, but incantation spells mumbo jumbo. So that is from late 14th century, it's saying. So now we're pushing it back. 12th century modern French grammaire. Okay, medieval Latin form grammaria. Classical Latin word is from Greek grammatica, take, art of letters. See gram. From gramma, see gram. Well, let's see what that is. Word forming element, that which is written or marked. So a gram is that which is written or marked. Again, drawer right is graphy. So there we go. Keep that in mind. Keep that in your back pocket. A much broader word in Latin and Greek, restriction, the meaning of systematic account of the rules and usages of language. There, now we're getting dialed in. Okay, Latin and Greek. Until 16th century, limited to Latin in reference to English usage by the late 16th century, the rules of a language to which speakers and writers must conform. For the magic sense, compare grammary. The evolution is characteristic of the Dark Ages, learning and general knowledge peculiar to the learned classes. And by learned classes, I mean the ruling classes. Back then, the learned classes were the priests, the monks, the folks who wrote the books, because the lower classes didn't have that knowledge. They didn't know how to read and write most of the time. So the ruling classes held all the cards, and those are the ones that created the Bible, the Korans, your Talmuds, all the things that people were told, oh, believe this, have faith, blah, 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 this is what God wants. Yep, one big psyop. That's how it was done. Which included astrology and magic, hence the secondary meaning of occult knowledge. Late 15th century Scottish, which evolved in Scottish into glamour. Geez, now I gotta look that one up. Magic, enchantment, spell. Said to be an alteration of English grammar, so it's a modification of English grammar. But isn't that interesting that glamour means magic, enchantment? Isn't that funny? Back to what we were talking about here, the Dark Ages, i.e. what some people would call the Dark Ages, some other people would call the Reset, the Great Reset, when everything changed, things were destroyed, entire races were wiped out. So now let's go and search Grimoire. Magician's Manual for Invoking Demons, 1849. From French Grimoire, we saw that before, altered from grammaire, incantation, grammar, see grammar. So that's 19th century. So all indications is that the word grammar, in whatever form, a contract with marking, if you will, was then modified later on to mean magic, or however they use it nowadays, where they try to make that continuance of the evidence from grammar to grimoire. So now let's move on to spell and follow that little thread. So we have spell. In this sense, it's a verb. Early 14th century, spelling, read letter by letter, write or say the letters of. 1400, form words by means of letters. And in most etymology sources, to be from Anglo-French, a speller, to mean signify, explain, interpret, spell out letters, pronounce, recite, to tell, Proto-Germanic, spelling, to tell, to talk, tell. Now, when Raven and I were throwing ideas back and forth for dictionaries many, many years ago, he had the idea to go so deep into the research to find meanings for two consonants. Now that's what this brings to mind to me. SP, to me, means speak. And I know I've heard DAVID-WYNN Miller mention the same thing. So when you see SP in a word, originally it meant speak. Just like SC at the beginning of a word usually means knowledge. ST means stand, so on and so forth, if you do the research. So we have to tell, talk, speak, discourse. Proto-Indo-European root, to say aloud, recite, speak with emphasis. So spell, in the earliest sense, was a verbalization. I was just going to say verbalize, but then it morphed into verbalization. So you said something out loud. It wasn't written. Originally, it was saying it out loud. Speak, preach, talk, tell. So now let's go to the next one. Middle English spell from Old English spell. Story, saying, tale. Story in prose as opposed to verse. Not sure what the difference is there. I mean, verse would be what? Poetry? And prose would just be straightforward, plain, simple English, I guess. History, narrative, fable, discourse, command. All those things. Sermon, religious instruction. Spellum. Report, discourse, tale, fable, myth. Example. An utterance, something said, statement, remark, set of words, with supposed magical or occult powers. Incantation charm is recorded from 1570. So hence any occult influence or means of cause of enchantment comes later. Later. You see, as I keep reiterating, this is the sense that I get. That the magical, satanic, witchcraft, whatever you want to call it, was added later. It was modified later. That's not what it originally was. Old English doctrine, sermon, religious instruction, teaching, the gospel, a book of the Bible. Compare gospel. Gospel. Glad tidings, announced by Jesus, one of the four gospels, literally good spell. From God, good, see good, plus spell, story, message. The first element of the Old English word had originally a long O, but it shifted to under mistaken association with God as if God's story, which it is not. The mistake was very natural, as the resulting sense was much more obviously appropriate than that of good tidings, for a word which was chiefly known as the name of a sacred book or portion of the liturgy. Any use of anything as true as the gospel, any doctrine maintained of exclusive importance. All right, so it's a good story. The gospel is a good story. Spell meaning story. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here, folks, is that there's no black magic originally in the nativity root meaning of these words. There is no black magic connotation to it. It all comes back to something very practical, which means it's basically a system of speaking or communicating. Better word, communication. Grammar is a system of communication. Now you can use grammar with any languages out there. English, French, Spanish, Latin, Japanese, Chinese, Russian, whatever. It's a system. Just like if you're using a grimoire, how they modified it, it's still a system of communication, either which way you look at it or slice it. So all you folks out there who get images like this in your head when you start reading about grimoires and spells and spelling and things like that, it's usually not that deep, bro. I mean, it is deep, but it's not that deep. I mean, as I've said literally thousands of times, the value of something is what you ascribe to it. The meaning of something is what you invest in it, what you give it. If you want to say the liquid in this cup is evil, it's demonic, that's the meaning it has for you. But don't expect someone like me who's very logical and researches and does their homework to ever participate in your delusion. Okay, if you bring something to me that makes sense, that you can prove with the continuance of the evidence, I'm all ears. But until such time, please leave the dramatics over there in Narnia. And I wish you well. And I hope things turn out for the best. Thank you for joining me for this Parse video. Hopefully see you in the next one. Que sera, sera.